Well, hello, everybody. I am Grace Mosey, and I am Jamie's mom.
And I am Jamie MoCrazy, and I recovered from a near fatal brain injury, and I was in the coma.
Yes, so the coma is, it's a pretty terrifying experience as the parent. I had a lot of experience in understanding certain aspects, but when it comes to being your own child, it really just is a mind-boggling new experience.
Yeah, and you were in Connecticut when they called you, right? You lived in Park City, Utah, but you were in
Mhm.
Connecticut.
Yes, I was in Connecticut and walking along a beach. It was April, and I was walking along the beach, and I got a call from your sister, Jeannie, who was with you, and you were at World Tour Finals as a slopestyle competitive skier, hoping to be first place. And the first run, you came in fourth. And as an athlete, who is at that level, especially coming in fourth, is not a good place.
No, it's the first person you forget at competitions.
Exactly. And so you decided that instead of doing the run that you had done, so slopestyle is you go off a jump, you spin and twist and flip, and you go off another big long jump, spin and twist and flip, and you can go off these things called rails and spin on them and do things. So it's a very trick-oriented kind of skiing.
Yes, and if you want to watch a film to understand this a little bit better, we have a film #MoCrazyStrong on Amazon Prime. We will get more to that, but if you're curious and you are like, okay, I'm going to watch it now, if you just Google #MoCrazyStrong on Amazon Prime, you can watch and understand my story a little bit more clearly of what I was doing.
Yes. Um, so I was walking on the beach. I got the phone call, thinking that, hey, that's going to be kind of a positive phone call. Something's exciting happening. And my daughter Jeannie said Jamie was in a terrible, horrible accident, and you have to talk to the medical people right now. So there wasn't anything positive. That was terrifying the way Jeannie spoke. And the medical person was telling me a lot of words. And these were words I wasn't really comprehending. And I couldn't understand really something vital. So I asked my question, is my daughter still alive? And the answer was, she is for the moment. Those words are so etched in my being. I fell to the ground and screaming, and my family that was with me were a little distance away just by accident or happenstance. And they came racing over. My stepdaughter was an anesthesiologist, and I said, you have to understand what this person is saying. Jamie is critically injured. And so Amy got on the phone, went into doctor mode, not sister mode, and had a conversation. From there, we had to go through the trauma of our own of how to get us from the East Coast to Whistler, Canada. So not just across the United States, but out of the country. We were able to get Jamie's dad on a plane. About 3 hours later, I had to, and my youngest child had to go from Connecticut to Los Angeles. We had to get somebody to go into my house, get our passports, fly to Los Angeles. All of this is beyond my ability. I couldn't do any of it. So Amy put it all together. And Jilly, the youngest, and Jilly was 14, and Amy made those communications because as the parent, I couldn't do anything. And we got to Whistler.
And while that was happening, my sister Jeannie, who was at World Tour Finals, it was the first time that she was actually invited to compete on her own. And we were both really excited to go to the awards ceremony, which was a dress-up event. And instead of going to the dress-up event with the skiers, Jeannie was spending the night at the hospital with a dying sister. And when she was in the hospital, she started the hashtag Mo Crazy Strong because my nickname was Jamie MoCrazy for my whole life. You always joke when I was a baby and I was climbing the drapes and getting stuck, you were like, "Oh, my little Mo Crazy." And then when I became a professional, they stuck to it. I was my last name, my birth last name was Jamie Crane Mosey, and so they would say Jamie Crane Mosey, the Mo Crazy is now on course. And I did Mo Crazy things like becoming the first woman in the world to double flip at X Games. And it kind of became that Mo Crazy things were things that were crazy, but thought through, so a little bit of Mo Crazy things. So Jeannie started the hashtag Mo Crazy Strong. It's actually on my wrist because Mo Crazy was going to become strong again. And that hashtag Mo Crazy Strong over the course of a decade of my recovery, which you'll hear more about, led to the creation of the Mo Crazy Strong Brain Injury Foundation, where we give opportunities for traumatic brain injury survivors and family caregivers. We can touch more on that later. And also hashtag Mo Crazy Strong, the multi-award winning 18-minute short documentary that is public on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, so that is a like a foreword of the success. You can see the success right here. But back to that flight. During that flight, when Jamie was at the critical moments of the coma, where they did not know if Jamie was going to survive, and I was flying at the pace of the slowest turtle I can imagine to get there. And what I made my choice, people make choices, people make decisions that they say, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. And I decided that I was going to love Jamie and care for Jamie at whatever level of recovery Jamie made. Now, those are two important things. Was I didn't care about the level. I didn't say, well, I'm going to get Jamie better. I'm going to do this and I'm just going to love Jamie. And then I was going to care for Jamie, not take care of Jamie. In my mind, somehow caring for someone is got the other someone involved at some level, at some touchness, some loveness, some beingness. Taking care of means to me that that other person isn't interactive or part of it. They're just there and you're just doing it and they're without really feeling that they're part of the situation. You're caring for them with them. And so that was very important for me. And I think Jamie could sense that.
And the caring for aspect of it with what we have done since our recovery research and foundation work is crucial to person-centered care.
Exactly.
Because you don't know what the person wants. You don't even necessarily, when you go into a coma, know if the person likes to be called Robert, Bobby, or Rob, unless it's made clear to you that the person
the
has
professional
wants.
people.
The professional people. Yeah. So the person's wants and dreams, which is something that you did for me.
So what we did in the hospital, one of the things is when I arrived at the hospital, my footsteps triggered recognition in Jamie. Jamie's machine started going crazy, and the nurse was getting ready to shuffle me away and take care of Jamie. And I said, 1 second. And I put my hands on Jamie and I said, I'm here. It still chokes me up.
And that is why she did an Oscar performance in the video.
Her machines calmed down. She knew She heard my footsteps. She knew it was me, and I touched her. That is something that was a new concept with Dr. Saccone. He was the doctor, and we worked a lot with him and have worked with him actually since we left his care 10 years ago, more than 10 years, 10 and a half years ago. But touching the coma person, the person in the coma receives the touch. And at what level, we may not know, but as the family caregiver, you know that you are giving such a deep love to that person and so much caring that 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 it can only help them in their confusion. There's probably a confusion when somebody's in a coma. There's probably distortions, confusions, something that their brain isn't comprehending, but they can tell your touch, your love. So that's such an important part. Your voice, your singing, your being with them at that coma, being really involved.
And one of the things they're doing some research on, but it's not clear, is the perception while someone is in a coma.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are still alive. So there is a certain amount of being alive.
Mm-hmm.
And they also do not have the coherency to be able to understand the same as you and me right now. But one of the stories about my coma is that one of the doctors, who actually was not Dr. Saccone, he was saying how I was never going to live independently. I was never going to ski again, probably never walk again. I would never regain the mobility on the right side of my body, which had been damaged in my 3rd-degree diffuse axonal injury by my right brainstem damage. And I was never going to be normal. I was never going to be normal.
Right.
And then I woke up, and what did I want to be?
Many weeks later, when the process of the recovery had happened of waking up, Jamie just kept saying, I just want to be normal. I just want to be normal. And I said, Jamie, you haven't been normal all your life. That's why you're Jamie MoCrazy. That's why you were able to do what you did as a skier. That's who you are, is really not just normal. Why do you want to be normal? And she said, well, that man said that. That man said I would never be normal. So while Jamie was in the coma, Jamie somehow got that message that Jamie, from that other earlier on in his career doctor, right above Jamie lying in the coma. And Amy and I insisted that we step away from Jamie when this conversation was happening. And he said, well, she can't hear anything. She's in a coma. She won't know. But we're sure that Jamie heard him and understood.
And that belief stayed with me for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Even for multiple years after my coma, I wanted to prove that I was normal.
Mm-hmm.
It just was such a part, an innate part of my desire. It took a really long time for me to decide that I actually was going to go back to the mountain that almost took my life to marry the love of my life. And in that process, legally change my last name to MoCrazy and throw being normal out the window and be me. But I've had that feeling that I needed to prove that I was going to be normal for such a long time. And I think when you're in a coma, you really have a sense of what's in your identity, like a sense of being normal, created that.
Yeah. So we worked a lot with Dr. Saccone while Jamie was in the hospital and while she was in the coma, because while we were there, Jamie was only in the coma. And one of the things that we changed was the family involvement of people in a coma. So if your loved one is in a coma, be their advocate, be strongly their advocate. For instance, at one point I said, well, I think Jamie's getting pneumonia. And the tests didn't show any pneumonia. And I said, I'm pretty sure that Jamie's getting pneumonia. And the next day, the test showed that Jamie had pneumonia. So we did catch it very early, but it might have even been like the tests could have been done the day before instead of waiting till the symptoms that were known to the doctors. Whatever I knew, I could hear it when I was hugging her, and I could hear there was a change, and I knew that change meant pneumonia. And if I had been wrong, it wouldn't have hurt to have tested about that pneumonia.
And one of the things that happened with Jeannie, when Jeannie actually arrived in the hospital and my father, they were asked if they could try a new multimodal monitoring system, that the technology and research came from Cambridge, England, and had never been used before on a patient in North America. And if they could try this multimodal monitoring system out on me.
Exactly. And Dr. Saccone was very clear that this system was brand new. And Jamie was at such a critical level of brain injury that he wanted to try anything. He wanted to try the newest and most available option that there was. And the interesting thing was that it probably did allow Jamie to have the kind of recovery that she did. Like that was a big, big part because it monitored the oxygen in her brain and showed that she needed, compared to the finger monitor, it monitored what directly in the brain. The finger monitor had said there was enough oxygen in Jamie's blood, but the brain did not have enough oxygen. So they immediately set things in action to increase the brain. So again, always being the advocate, always on stepping up and saying, yes, let's do the best thing.
And as the scientific understanding is increasing about brain injury, one of the things we need to keep in mind is that people like you, people who are watching this, you have individuals like me and my mom, you have our lives in your hands, because if I had had a worse outcome or had died, like it would have affected my mom, it would have affected my whole family. So you have a lot of people, and so you need to recognize what you do know and the value of it. And then also recognizing, thinking creatively, and always being open to grow and learn new things about neuroplasticity, about creating habits and synaptic connections, and multimodal monitoring those devices, because they have not become standard devices all over the world. And one of the reasons is because it is a more pricey procedure. And also, every brain injury is different. So there needs to be more research on which types of brain injury does this actually affect positively. Because there is a thought. I've been in talks with Dr. Saccone. We actually spoke at Integra Life Sciences last June together, after he just had a baby, and we've been in communication back and forth. And I've been doing a lot of research on brain injury and recovery. And with multimodal monitoring, like I said, every time it does not work. However, there has been a consistency that Dr. Saccone has seen in his patients that have experienced diffuse axonal injuries versus hemorrhages and other forms of brain injury. So we need to do more research, and we need to try things out so that we can get more of a consistency. But then the also thing that's very important to remember about brain injury, which makes it really challenging, is that our brains are so complex, there is not a guarantee. And that ties into the mental aspect of no guarantee, that if you tell your patient they are going to get to here, and you tell their family they are going to get to here, they're going to get to here, and your predictions are going to come true. However, if you say they could get to here, here or here, and this is what we could do to better the outcome. And this is how we can think creatively to build a life we love after a brain injury, regardless of any changes in ability that might happen. I know individuals who have permanent changes and they can still build a life they love after a coma.
Exactly. So one of the things that it may be of interest is that I had been researching and studying about neuroplasticity and wrote an article that's posted on Facebook. So it wasn't published in a peer-reviewed journal, but I was already involved with understanding and learning about neuroplasticity, about regeneration of the brain, about making new pathways from old pathways. And so even when Jamie was in the coma, some of the things that we did that seemed completely unique to other people was, rather than only playing soft kinds of music, I actually
Or no
played
music at all.
or no music at all. I turned on Jamie's playlist, Jamie, 22-year-old playlist. And I played that, not loud.
T Swift and Biggie.
So it was a big variety. There was Beyonce, Biggie, Taylor Swift, like you name it. It was a huge variety of kinds of music. And Jamie appreciated that. There were, the machines all show you what's going on, so that was one thing that was very different, was playing. I sang the lullabies during the same period of time. So play Jamie's music, and then at another time I would sing the lullabies that I sang to Jamie and her siblings when they were babies.
And something you guys told me that you have to pay attention to is that at the time when I was in the coma, Jeannie started reading Harry Potter, and I got too excited. I love Harry Potter. So they stopped.
We had to stop because
a
the
couple months later, I read Harry Potter or listened to it again, and then I started reading Harry Potter. That was the first book I read actually 4 years after my brain injury that I actually enjoyed reading was Harry Potter. So lots to do with Harry Potter, but in the coma, it created too much excitement. So you had to be aware of that.
We had to, yes. So we took account of what those machines told us. There was another thing that Jamie started doing, which was her left side would just reach over and pound that right side, that unfeeling, unmoving right side, and just
because of my
pounding
brainstem damage.
because of the brainstem damage. So the right side was paralyzed. So one of the things that I knew from research as an undergraduate and a graduate student on early childhood development was bilateral, cross-lateral movements. And so we started, as soon as we knew that Jamie was physically able to be moved, we started moving Jamie's body. And that calmed the left side down because somehow there was a connection enough that, and we took that left side and I made that left side rub. I took Jamie's left hand and rubbed Jamie's left hand on the right hand. And I took the left foot and made it go touching to the left foot. So these were things that I could tell were important for Jamie. And these bilateral cross-lateral movements are things that can be very gently stimulating for that neuroplasticity. Another thing that we did, because I also am an integrative functional nutritionist, I also asked and was allowed to have vitamin C, vitamin D, pre and probiotics added to Jamie's feeding tube. There was another.
And something about adding things to the feeding tube and stuff like that is, I understand a lot of hospitals, if it's not part of the protocol, they cannot offer that. And so that's one of the things that our foundation does. If you reach out to us, we can educate you, or you can send individuals, Dr. Saccone sent patients our way to talk to us about what they should ask to the doctor, because quite often the patient needs to ask if they can implement these things to the feeding tube. And unless
Or
they
the
know,
movements and the movements that
right.
we did.
So unless they know what to ask about, they might not know what to do. So feel free to reach out to us. Our website is mocrazystrong.org. And we'd be happy to work with you.
Yep. So another thing that we did while Jamie was in the coma was we printed out 100, maybe 50. I don't know how many, a lot of photos. We printed them on just plain paper and we put them up in Jamie's cubicle, in Jamie's area. And we put those up because that gave the staff, the professional staff, that Jamie was a person with a background, with a personality, and it made people have a different interaction with Jamie. The before and after putting those up, I wish I could have had a real scientific study of the difference of the staff, how they, the professional people, how they reacted and interacted with Jamie after we put up the photos.
And speaking of scientific backing and research and stuff, you happen to be doing your PhD program in mind-body medicine with a focus on traumatic brain injury so that you can get a scientific backing as to why what you did for me created the recovery that you see and how it can be implemented to other individuals to help aid their recovery process as well.
Exactly. So, so mind-body medicine is therapies such that create a connection between the body part and the mind, and it could be from the mind to the body to the mind. So, a lot of people have heard of, holistic. So, that's another sort of another term that covers in a broad way what my research is. So, I'm researching how does meditation, massage, nutrition, nature therapy, movement therapy. There might be a few more that I have been researching over the last 4 years. And what I'm looking to do is to show that what I did with Jamie can be replicated and that these options are doable starting in the coma. And then as the transition out of the coma, because most people don't just wake up and say, hello, good morning. It's a very long, slow process. And there's often the large neurodivergent things have happen during the waking up. So that is why it's important to have what's going on in the coma, and then as coming out of the coma to help the brain, because when the brain is in a coma, there's fight, flight, and freeze. So fight, we know that's like an aggressive, could be aggressive. Flight is running. Freeze, coma is the freeze reaction of the brain. This is something that is so important to understand, that it is a safety mechanism of the brain to not let the brain have any more harm. And the other part that happens is because it's fight, flight, or freeze, there is the brain needs to have a relaxation. So it's called the sympathetic nervous system, is the fight, flight, or freeze. And that is everything is on alert and ready for protection. So the coma is a freeze mechanism of protection. What needs to happen, my research shows that what needs to happen for the opportunity of the best recovery is parasympathetic nervous system. That is recovery, restore, rebuild, digest, recreate. So all of those need to be put into place And we can do that. So we think, oh, they're in a coma, they're just lying there, but their brain is in freeze mode in that part of the sympathetic nervous system that holds them for safety. And we need to, through all of these mechanisms, remember I started with love. Love tells that person that they're in a safe place. Gentle touching will bring them to their safe place.
And you can find different ways to work with the family caregivers. And by family, I do not mean biological family. I mean those who are connected to the brain injury, who are not paid for their role. And finding ways to work with them and collaborate with them, not feeling overwhelmed. Of course, they're going to feel overwhelmed. So how do you take that overwhelmed feeling and give them direction to aid you as the doctors who are working with these patients? How can you get them to aid you rather than hinder you?
Right. There's a lot of research now on the family caregiver also, that they also go into the mode of the sympathetic nervous system. Shock is a form of sympathetic nervous system. So the shock that I had when I heard of Jamie's injury was me going into the sympathetic nervous system. So the caregiver needs to have ways of helping them to remove themselves and become a place of safety and strength for themselves, as well as for their family member.
So hospitals and different medical institutions need to find a way to work in collaboration with the caregivers, not feel so overwhelmed by their irrationality that they kind of just push them to the side, but finding ways that you can both aid the outcome of the patient. And one last thing I'm going to mention about something that you did with me that was one of my first memories is you actually taping down my strong hand, my good side of my body, so that I would make breakfast with my weak hand, which is intermittent motion. And at the time, it was really, really hard for me. And making breakfast was like pouring milk and cereal into a bowl and cutting up some strawberries. It wasn't anything fancy. And
It's
I
just the milk and cereal to start with.
Yeah, I was so mad at you. I swore at you. And you were like, do you know why I'm making you do this? And my response was, yes, because I know you love me. And that was one of my first memories. And we did that intermittent physical activity for years after my brain injury. And let me tell you, when I was like 2 years post brain injury, and I'm thinking I'm fine, even though I still have emotional deficits and my cognition's not there and I still have to heal. But like,
and there was still some aspects of the left hand moved a lot.
oh, that's what I was going to say. My left hand, and I would have this conversation and I'd be talking like this, and you take it, and oh, that was so frustrating. But I knew, I knew, which is an incredible gift that I probably got from being an athlete, but you can train yourself to know that you need to keep recovering for years, and it takes so long, and it can happen. And that's what you need to remember. And so it worked. And like I mentioned, kind of a bit at the beginning, we've had contact with like individuals who are 70% blind, who climb some of the tallest mountains in the world. And these amazing, amazing brain injury survivors who have had permanent changes in their ability. And all of them have made the choice that they are going to create a life they love. And that is what everybody can do. And that is what the doctors can provide the education for the people that they're working with, that it is possible to create a good life after a brain injury. The whole narrative that after a coma, your life is going to be worse. Let's just get rid of that. Like, there's so many challenges in life, so many different types that, yeah, a coma is a huge challenge and can be really detrimental and scary.
And the recovery can be slow and overwhelming. And it's important to understand that things are can be slow and overwhelming, and not to get and allow that overwhelm to overpower. There's a difference between being overpowered by being overwhelmed and saying, this too shall pass. That's a nice phrase to say, this too shall pass. Have a nice phrase for yourself. For Jamie, being a very active person, Jamie wanted to go hiking and wanted to go out into the mountains. We lived in Park City, Utah, mountains and hiking. And then it was spring and summer during the first part of the recovery. And well, it was summer by the time we got home, and into the fall. So while it was still beautiful, and Jamie was embarrassed because Jamie knew that somehow was capable of understanding that everybody was sort of waiting around for Jamie to catch up to them. And so I said, Jamie, rather than feeling embarrassed, let's just have you stop and you say, hey, everybody, let's look at the view. And that became a mantra.
Instead of saying, hey guys, I need to take another break. I need to take another break, which makes you feel negative.
Yes. So we stopped, and I gave you the image of these beautiful mountains so that you could know that let's stop and look at the view. There was always a view. Anywhere you stopped on a hike, there was a view to look at.
Even if it doesn't seem like as stereotypically as beautiful of a view, if you stop, you will notice amazing things about wherever you are on the hike, the trees, the bushes. It's a view through your journey, no matter what, if you stop and look at the view.
Yeah, so exactly. So finding your specific mantra, if you want to use ours, please do. Let's stop and look at the view. Have and this is as you're coming out of the coma, as you're moving beyond the coma. And while you're in the coma, for the person who is not in the coma, to have your mantra, this shall pass. I love you with all my heart. You look lovely today. Just things like that. Just simple phrase, a simplest phrase that you can have for yourself that will help you go from that fight, flight, freeze that you as the caregiver are in to that parasympathetic, because you need to create the being that allows your loved one to have the recreate and the recovery and the rest and the digestion. You need to help by being in your parasympathetic nervous system.
And so I was actually born garbling, and I haven't really stopped since. And luckily I've been able to turn it into becoming a global professional speaker. And you speak with me too, because you like to talk. If you can't figure that out, we love to talk and share our journey, because we know how sharing our journey can help so many other individuals, because people like you, the audience, who are working on the medical side of helping it, are part of a huge journey. There's the research and the scientific side. There's the medical acute care side. There's the long-term rehabilitation. There's a family. It's a huge journey of people who have been involved in creating my recovery, because I had so many opportunities, which is why we're so passionate about creating more opportunities for more people.
Exactly.
But like I said, we can just keep talking forever. And if you'd like to talk with us more, feel free to reach out. We definitely would, love to talk.
We would love to share and support you in all the ways that we are capable, or guide you in ways that we might see that we're not able to actually support you. But we have a lot of wealth of information that we are so eager to share.
And connections. I know doctors, I know scientists,
Yeah, we know doctors
all around the world, connections, so we can help push you towards people. And if you have ideas, my mom is in the process of the initial kind of stages of her dissertation for her PhD program on traumatic brain injury and family caregivers' involvement in recovery. So reach out to us if you want to. If not, I hope you've enjoyed this talk.
Yeah,
and
we have.
We always love it. And so we will talk to you later.
Bye.